What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook. Born in Vegas, Will Brinson here for an incredible Week 14, along with the usual excellent group of misfits. Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White, fellas. Hope all is well. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Football's here, right? Now football has really started. We get the sprint to the end of the season, and we have best bets for every single game, including a banger on the Thursday night slate. Packers at Lions. Toyotathon has begun. Jordan Love is suddenly white hot. The Lions, of course, a one-loss team. Huge game in the NFC and the NFC North, Larry. Do you think the Packers at plus 3.5 in Detroit, a total of 51.5, are getting too many points here?
Yeah, anything over the hook. I love Green Bay in this spot. You mentioned it. Jordan Love loves December. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Has actually gone a couple straight weeks without throwing a pick, which is shocking after I think it was 9 straight with a pick. But the matchup tonight is all about Josh Jacobs pounding the middle of that Lions defense that has basically lost everyone, starting with DJ Reader, the nose tackle, Pascal, Rodriguez, the linebacker, and on, and several other defensive linemen. It's really not just 2 or 3 guys. They're down more than 10 of their top 15 guys in the defensive front 7, and Josh Jacobs runs it between the tackles more than any player in the NFL, and he's been very successful. Number 4 in yards after contact going up the middle. So I think where last game, Jordan Love wasn't healthy, they got behind, and Josh Jacobs was still very effective on 13 carries, getting over 90 yards. This is a game where it's going to be competitive. He's going to do a lot of damage, not put so much pressure on Jordan Love. I think both teams are going to score. It's going to be a great game, a close game. So I took the points, but I also love Josh Jacobs over his combined receiving yards, rushing and receiving. He's cleared this easily in 5 straight games, and he's gotten 22 or more touches in 3 straight.
I'm going to lean on the Lions side here. It's really just the number for me. I made the number 4. This team has been so good at home indoors. It's not a short week for them as they played on Thursday night as well. But I have some injury concerns on the Green Bay side. We know that the Detroit defense has been beat up all year and they've somehow managed to survive it. But when you look at the Green Bay side, Edgerrin Cooper out, Jair Alexander out, offensively, Romeo Doubs out. Now, I think that's only going to be a problem if they fall behind. If they manage to stay neutral, I think it's going to be an okay thing. But if the Lions start hot offensively and put the Packers in that trailing game script, that's where I think it could be a problem for them. For me, just considering the stakes of the game, I think whoever wins the game or covers the spread wins the game. I think if the Packers cover, it's because they win outright. And if the Lions win this game, I think they ultimately win by that key number of 4 to 7 points. So I will lean to the Lions side here, just considering how good they've been in that building.
Yeah, I'm going to lean to the Packers just because I think it'll end up being a 3 or 4 point game going back and forth with a bunch of points scored. And so getting the hook here, like Larry said, I think is a key thing for taking the Packers here. So I just hope that they don't lose by 4, but I think, one of these teams is going to win by 3 or 4 points.
Sorry, muted myself. Good job by me. I'm leaning towards the Packers here, but I'm going to take the over. I think Mike's probably right. Like you see, like don't try and get cute taking the Packers because you think the Lions will just win by 3. If you believe the Packers are going to win the game, that's when you take them. And I actually kind of think that they might. Love's like his stats last year closing out the season were ridiculous. I don't think it's something that's going to hit. But he's 65-1 to win MVP, and we really don't have that many candidates up top. If like Josh Allen slips it all and Saquon's a running back, I don't know. Crazier things have happened. Packers went out, maybe win the division. We'll see. Just throwing it out there. But I think we get a bunch of points here. The Lions are down 13. They have 13 defensive players on injured reserve, almost double the next closest team in the NFL. Yeah, both teams would love to run the football, but you can attack these secondaries. Detroit will protect up front. They have so many weapons out there. I think we end up seeing a shootout that gets really loose and we get a ton of points and we cruise past this very high number of 51.5. I realize that is probably the donkey pick. I don't care. I'll take the points, but would lean towards the Packers as well. And If Jordan Love wins MVP, remember who you heard it here first. It's 65-1. A bunch of big divisional games in the 1 o'clock window coming up. Remember the snowball from last week? That was fun. Not going to get that tonight. We got Browns and Steelers. Browns trying to play spoiler for Russell Wilson in this incredible season. Can Jameis Winston pull it off? We will tell you best bets for that game and much more next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 14 pick show. Best bets for every game on the entire slate. Will Brinson here, along with Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. We got some big old divisional matchups to get to in the early slate, including on CBS. Browns at Steelers. The Steelers a 6.5-point favorite here against the extremely frisky and fun, all of a sudden, Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh, incredible season. What can you say? Russell Wilson, it's been a revelation for them. Everybody's clicking. Mike Tomlin's pulling all the right strings. But, man, you get Jameis Winston coming to your house, and you are laying 6.5. It's a lot of points, even with a small total here, RJ, of 43.5, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm taking the Browns with the points. Cleveland won the first meeting despite a -2 turnover margin. They can keep things close if Winston doesn't throw multiple pick sixes. I don't know how we didn't get the cover in that Broncos game with how well that they played there. Pittsburgh defense has been soft since the bye, including giving up a ton of points to Cincinnati. It seems like even if Cleveland is down, Jameis can get a backdoor cover against this defense the way they're playing. And the Steelers, when they're big favorites, is the spot you want to fade them. They're 1-11 against the spread in their last 12 as favorites of more than a field goal. And the one cover dependent on a punt return touchdown, which you can't really count on week to week, obviously. So I think in order to cover, the Pittsburgh defense has to play much better than it has the last few weeks, while the offense stays at an elite level, and then maybe they catch a break or two. So that all lines up to having a lot of value on Cleveland plus 6.5, even plus 7, which I've seen in the market.
Yeah, I'm on Cleveland with you as well here, RJ. And I think, you don't like to look at, you don't want to die. You don't go too heavy on look ahead spots when it comes to the NFL because these guys show up week to week. But Pittsburgh is at Philly next week in a massive game, and just in terms of like how do you measure up and playing against a same in-state team, that in-state rivalry or whatever you want to call it. This is a divisional game, so they're going to show up for it. But you do think with just the wild card that Jameis brings, the ability. He looked great against Denver, throwing it all over the place, being aggressive down the field. He's going to do that, and sometimes he just doesn't have those games where he does throw the turnovers, and when he does, Cleveland's live to win any week. So I like the Browns catching 6.5 here. I just think it's too many points. Also, Nick Chubb, wants to go back against the Steelers again like he did the last time. Jets at the Dolphins. Dolphins also a 6.5-point favorite in this home divisional matchup. Won't have to deal with any weather, more than likely, down there at Hard Rock Stadium. A total here of 45. This game also on CBS, Mike.
Yes, I like the Dolphins here. I'm going to play them on the money line, though. Just a simple money line parlay. You can essentially make it a teaser if you want. I paired them with the Minnesota Vikings, but the Jets, it's just been a disaster of a season. Now you get the little vacation down to South Beach. I don't think Breece Hall is going to end up giving it a go in this one. He missed practice again today. I just think this is a spot that sets up extremely well for the Dolphins to just simply win the football game here. I like what they've been able to do offensively with Tua, even in that cold weather game in Green Bay, a muffed punt that really put them behind things early in that game. I just think this is a team that is very likely to win this game against the Jets. So I have played them on the money line, paired them with the Minnesota Vikings. -105 is the price point there.
I'm taking the over in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points. Miami's dealing with a bunch of injuries at cornerback that Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams should be able to exploit, even if the Jets aren't able to run the ball. I think they'll be able to get up to 20 in this game. And then on the Miami side, Sauce Gardner might also not play for the Jets, and that'll make things easier for the Miami receivers. But even if he does play, the Jets have allowed 26 points in 3 straight or more, so I don't know that they're holding Miami under 27 or 30 anyway. So I think at 45, and even, you could probably find a 44.5 still in the market. This is a good overplay because this total seems like it's going to get to 50 to me.
Sorry, I was looking down. I'm scrambling to add Braylon Allen to my fantasy teams ahead of a must-win week in week 14. I like another running back though. Devon Achane rushing yards prop set around 57.5, and I don't mind at all if you want to wait till a little closer to Sunday to try and find the rushing and receiving prop. But the Jets have been horrendous against the run basically since they fired Robert Saleh. They're giving up 200 rushing yards per game on average over the last 7 weeks. That is really, really bad. And that includes holding the Patriots to like 130 yards. So they've been getting gashed in terms of teams running on them. I think in this spot, if the Dolphins get a lead, they will rotate those backs in, but Achane is going to get those carries, and he's sort of been game scripted out the last 2 weeks. On Thanksgiving, they got behind early to the Packers, so you're not going to run the football. And then they got up so big on the Patriots early, they pulled their starters almost at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and so they weren't going to be running with Achane. I think we see a healthy dose of him. Dolphins in a must-win spot at home to try and keep their playoff hopes alive. I like Achane over 57.5 rushing yards. The John Gruden Bowl, if you will, also on CBS on Sunday. Raiders at the Buccaneers. Another 6.5 point spread. Look at this. Buccaneers minus 6.5 total here, Larry. 46.5. Do you think that the Fighting Antonio Pierces can keep this competitive?
I do. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, entertaining game, and it hasn't translated to points yet, but the Raiders' switch at offensive coordinator has paid dividends in things like yards per play over their last 3 games, 5.7 yards per play. They had nearly 7 yards per play against the Kansas City Chiefs. They missed a bunch of field goals. They had a fumble. They had a turnover on down, so they only got 17 points, but they put up 434 total yards against the Chiefs. And now they're facing a bottom 3 pass defense with weapons like you put up on the screen in Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers and a new running back in Sincere McCormick. So I think there is plenty of offensive talent to get to 20 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a great spot for the Raiders offense to finally break through and get into the 20s.
Yeah, they might get there. Yeah, and I think Brock Bowers a great look for anytime touchdown or overs on his yardage. He's the focal point of that offense, having a historic season. Could be offensive rookie of the year if it weren't for all these quarterbacks who are playing so well. That being said, I want to take the Bucs. Smash spot here for Baker and company at home. I mean, Bucky Irvin coming on like gangbusters. Mike Evans, I think, has that 1,000-yard streak kind of still in his sights. And with an eruption game, had a really nice game last week. With an eruption game, he can really, kind of get close to keeping that alive. I think he wants that for his Hall of Fame legacy. And you look at the offensive splits with and without Mike Evans. I mean, drastic, extreme. 6 points per game less with Evans out there. 0-3 when he doesn't play, almost over 40 yards less, and Baker's passer rating tumbles below 100. So much better quarterback with Mike Evans out there. As I mentioned, Bucky Irvin, Rachaad White running the ball well. They got Sean Tucker too. I think they can kind of name their score on this Raiders defense. Give me the Bucs laying nearly a touchdown. One more divisional matchup to get to on this side of the slate. Jaguars at the Titans. Will Levis, minus 3.5 in week 14. Who would have guessed it early in the year? Titans a 3-win team, but the Jaguars are just dead in the water. Trevor Lawrence on IR. Season probably over. We assume everybody's going to get fired there. You would think so. Titans actually been kind of frisky, Larry, the last few weeks. They are minus 3.5 here with a total of 39.5.
They're still not mathematically eliminated, which is kind of funny. But, yeah, I like them to cover this number. Getting down 28-0 was not a good look last week at Washington, but there were a lot of turnovers. And Will Levis, since coming back from his shoulder injury, is number 5 in passer rating. He's not throwing as many pick sixes as he used to. And now you have Mac Jones coming in, bottom 3 in most of the metrics. But to me, it's really what Tennessee is going to do offensively against easily the worst passing defense in the NFL. And the Titans, if you just look at them, they have played much better at home. They still want to build around Will Levis. And I just like the way he's playing lately, even though it hasn't really translated to an outburst game, but this could be it. I mean, we've seen the Jaguars no-show in certain spots on the road, giving absolutely no defensive effort. So I think that continues here, and the Titans win by 10 or more.
Yeah, I haven't been able to lay the points yet, even though I think that's the value side, but I do like the over in this game. The only Jacksonville game under 40 since week 2 was the Minnesota game where they allowed 402 yards. Sam Darnold had some bad turnovers and the Vikings kicked 4 field goals. Could have been a much higher scoring game if the Jaguars did anything on offense. Tennessee's run defense fell apart last week, while the pass defense has struggled in recent weeks due to injury. And Mac Jones was hitting receivers last week against the Texans and looked pretty solid. I like the over more if Parker Washington plays. I believe today he's in a non-contact jersey, so we'll see his stats for this game. But if he's okay, I think the Jaguars will be able to score points, and I think Will Levis will be able to score points. Like you said, he's been solid when he's not throwing pick sixes, and even if he does throw some pick sixes, that's going to help the over too. So I like over 39.5 as a best bet.
I'm right there with you, RJ. I really thought this number would sit at 41.5. We know 41 and 43 become just incredibly key numbers in the NFL. And Will Levis is going to want to throw the football still. And this Titans team, we laugh about them being not mathematically eliminated. If this team had just simply ran the football or taken a knee a few times, they might be 6-6 right now. So I really think that this team is a lot better than people think. And I think you've got that Calvin Ridley effect, the revenge narrative. He's going to get targeted deep. I just think there's some high variance stuff on both sides, both in terms of scoring touchdowns, turning the football over. And it's really not a situation like when you see a number in the 30s here. I had to look at the weather again. This game's here in Nashville where I am, thinking that we might see 25 degrees. It's going to be 57 on Sunday. It's going to be beautiful, right? There's rain coming in after the game, but it's not cold by any means. So for me, I think the over is the only way to look here.
Yeah, I was trying to do in my head the math where I lose my Titans over that I have for a best bet and you guys get the actual over. I don't think it's likely. I think if the over gets there, the Titans, and it's kind of an inflated total, 21.5, that's not a small number for a team like Tennessee, but welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 14 pick show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White giving you best bets for every game on the slate, including a 1 p.m. revenge game special between Kirk Cousins and his old team, the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are -5.5 in this spot, hosting Atlanta. I mean, just a struggling Atlanta team in the middle of a standard NFC South battle to see who can go 9-8 and claim the division crown against a Vikings team that, is right there in the mix for everything at the top of the NFC. Mike, you mentioned before you have the Dolphins in a money line parlay with the Vikings. So you like the Vikings to win outright here.
Yeah, just taking the Vikings on the money line paired with the Dolphins here. Look, this is the most important game of the rest of the season for the Minnesota Vikings. And I say that because the schedule's tough after that. This is one, if they have aspirations at the top here, this is exactly one you have to win. And I think it sets up well. I think Sam Darnold's going to have some success because I'm not terrified at all of Atlanta's pass rush. And if you give Darnold enough time to throw, he's shown that he's been a very good quarterback. I think Justin Jefferson has a big day. I think TJ Hawkinson has a big day. And ultimately, I just think this is a great spot for them to grab a win. And it becomes even more important, we're talking here on Thursday, if the Packers are able to upset the Lions, because remember, the Vikings went into Green Bay, beat Green Bay there. They get to host them in the final meeting here. This is huge week for Minnesota overall. Absolute must win, in my opinion, and I think they get it done.
Yeah, I think if Michael Penix was playing against any other opponent than Minnesota, they might put him into this game because of the blitzing of Brian Flores. They're going to stick with Kirk Cousins, and it would be so insulting to Kirk Cousins to not let him play this game. But that's how bad he's been, guys, the last 3 weeks. 0 TDs and 6 picks. He's not planting off his back foot. I mean, is that an injury? They're not saying that he's hurt, but he's not planting, and you're seeing these balls just flutter to the opponents. In fact, one of our guys, Mike Renner, had a great stat. When not playing Tampa Bay, Kirk Cousins has more interceptions and touchdowns, and he has an 80 passer rating. So he's put up most of his stats in 2 games against the Bucs, and this is a matchup where he's a stationary target for all of those blitzes. And on the other side, I agree with everything you guys said. Plenty of time for Sam Darnold, who's very susceptible to pressure. Justin Jefferson, I love him over his catches, over his yards. He has 6+ catches in his last 5 home games, and when he has time for plays to develop, he is going to get open, and I agree. I think the Vikings offensive line can give him a clean pocket, Sam Darnold that is, and the Vikings win by 10.
Yeah, the Falcons have no pass rush. Darnold's going to have time to throw. Jefferson's going to be wide open. Even if they double team him, he knows how to shake a safety better than anybody in the NFL. Vikings run game should be fine here. Atlanta has a wounded quarterback. So I'm going to take the Falcons plus 5.5. It's on brand. Give me Kirk Cousins. Look, maybe he just goes in and lays it all out on the table. This, like he's playing for his job against his old team that didn't want to pay him and let him walk to Atlanta despite taking a big cap hit. This is a prime spot for Kirk Cousins. He might be out there throwing the ball with a shredded Achilles again, just to try to win this game. I think he finds a way to stay inside the number. I don't think the Falcons will win. I do agree with Mike. I think the Vikings get it done, but this is a Vikings team that lives in these one-score games. Very good coaching. Don't make the crucial mistakes. I think Atlanta rises up for Kirk Cousins and covers in the revenge game. No, I don't feel good about it. I argued against it for the entirety of that spiel. Panthers at the Eagles. I don't have a ton of picks here, guys, but the Eagles minus 12.5, hosting the resurgent Bryce Young. We've been making fun of Pete Prisco. Like, you're going to have to write this public apology letter to Bryce Young. And he's like, wait till the Eagles. Well, he might be right, RJ. This is a really tough spot for a Panthers offense and a Panthers defense that can be run over against a Philly team that is just an absolute truck stick. Minus 12.5, total of 46.
Yeah, Carolina's defense has already given up 2,000 rush yards on the season, and we're just barely getting into December. Think about how bad that is. You're basically getting the Derrick Henry every single week if you're them. So they have played better in the last 4 games, but I don't know if the offense can have success against an elite Philly defense. That last week against the Ravens was the first time they gave up 300 yards since week 4. Like, we're talking about most of the season, they're just holding teams under 300 yards. And the Carolina offense, as improved as it is, doesn't seem special enough to be the team to beat that trend. So Philly is likely to lean on the run game. They should have success in it. They should chew up a lot of clock and limit the possessions in this game. And that's why my lean on this one is going to be under 46 points.
So, yeah, I think I would lean towards the under 2. Seems way too high. I also think, but if I were going to have a more specific lean, it would probably be the Panthers team total under. Like, Bryce Young has been so much better the last month. It's been a revelation. It's changed the Panthers' mindset on what they're going to do with him long term, and they're not going to draft a quarterback. But the Panthers' offensive line, you got to run. Like, for them to function correctly, they're not going to be able to run against Philly. Jalen Carter could we could see multiple Eagles defenders make a push for awards here, whether it's Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, or Jalen Carter for Defensive Player of the Year, the aforementioned 2 for the offensive or Defensive Rookie of the Year, excuse me. And I just don't think Carolina's going to be able to score. I'm just curious how many times Saquon Barkley runs the ball before they pull him and put in Kenneth Gainwell and sort of pile up, garbage time yardage. I just don't think Carolina has much success here, but 12.5, too many for me. Saints at the Giants. Saints, the Saints are 4.5 point road favorite in New York here, Mike. That is a lot of points for a bad Saints team. Total here of 41 as well. So it's not like we're talking about a bunch of scoring.
Yeah, too many points for me. I could get behind it if the number was 3, but at 4.5, I think the Giants can stay within the number here. We got to talk about Taysom Hill. Like, just absolute magician to this offense, and his loss will certainly be felt in this particular matchup, in my opinion. We're also talking about a team that is used to playing either in warmer climates and indoors, heading to New York this time of year. While it's not going to be extremely cold, certainly something to consider here. I think that the fact that not having Taysom Hill there makes it a little easier to simply focus on Alvin Kamara. So for me, if the number were 3, it'd be a complete stay away, but at 4.5, I would have to take the Giants side.
I'm also on the Giants as a best bet after, missing out on them last week. Lock did not matter to the offense last week, but this is, like Mike said, more about New Orleans not deserving to be more than -3 on the road against anybody, even the worst team in the league. That Taysom loss you talk about, it turns them into a traditional attack. People will say, well, they only got the ball a couple times a game, so how much does it really matter? And when you have to prepare to defend that every play. It matters. And now you have Derek Carr throwing to Marquez Valdez-Scantling and a bunch of weapons that shouldn't be really starting in any NFL games or probably playing big roles in NFL games. So they're so injured at a receiver that's going to have to be the case. And so without reliable weapons, without a good offensive line, I don't see how this team scores enough to cover on the road in outdoors, because this is a New Orleans team that's used to playing indoors. So even with the Giants' offensive line issues, they have better weapons on the field if Locke can get the ball out. So we'll just hope that he's better when not facing the Dallas rush than he was last week. So yeah, Giants plus 4.5 best bet. I would take it anything down to 3.
Well, I'm going to be at this game in person because I want to see these Saints put up a number on the New York Giants, because I happen to own a lot of the Saints in fantasy. But I do think they're going to cover this number, because the Giants, they don't have an O-line left, and they just lost their defensive captain, the anchor, the guy, one of the best players in the league, and Dexter Lawrence. So I think the Giants right now are the worst team in football, and so that's why this number does make sense. When you still have Derek Carr, you still have Alvin Kamara, you still have Jawan Johnson, you still have MVS, you have enough to beat this team 17-10.
I honestly had no idea where you were going to go with "I want to see" in Giants and Saints there, Larry. I was like, what does he want to see? Like, I want to see some Drew Lock versus Derek Carr. Hey, look, it's a football game in December, always worth going. Don't blame you for it at all. But I mean, might not be the prettiest game in the world. We do have some pretty quarterback play in the late slate and on Sunday Night Football. Josh Allen may have stamped with this dive right here his MVP chances. Justin Herbert gets a piece of Patrick Mahomes. Some awesome AFC quarterback play. We will tell you best bets for all those games and much more coming up next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 14 pick show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White giving you picks for every single game on the slate, our best bets. And we head to Los Angeles, where the Rams are hosting the Bills in my preseason Super Bowl matchup, which looks a little bit less likely than it did to me before the season, but still not dead. The Bills are an absolute truck lately. This line has actually dropped, as RJ noted during the break, from 4.5 down to 3.5. I will still take the Rams here as a best bet plus 3.5. Look, I get it. I don't want to get in front of the Bills, but they have a really tough schedule coming up. I think that, especially with the Lions sitting there. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say really tough schedule. They get the Patriots twice, but they have the Lions sitting there as like, a possible Super Bowl matchup. And I do think coming off that massive game against San Francisco, which it was a blowout, but it was clearly huge for Josh Allen. He hurts his left hand again in that game, still runs for a touchdown, still catches and then runs for a touchdown. I think there's a chance they maybe dial back the passing offense a little bit, dial back the Josh Allen runs, try to lean on James Cook, try to lean on Ray Davis, run the football. I think Matthew Stafford, team getting a little healthier. He's got the big three out there. They can hang with the Bills. They know how important this game is. And, the home field advantage, not necessarily there for LA, but I do think Stafford has a nice game and they keep it within this number. Just makes it a field goal game. Maybe Tyler Bass comes through and kicks one at the end. Mike, any lean for you here?
I would lean the other way with the Bills. You kind of mentioned the environment, right? This is like the softest environment Buffalo could possibly play in. Just no real home field advantage. It's perfect conditions. Not necessarily their identity, but the fact that you can get this at less than 4, just 4 being such a key critical number here, until I see it. Look, the Rams were a team that I backed them last week. I got away with the win there, but man, I was not impressed at all with what they put on film against the New Orleans Saints, a Saints team that lost Taysom Hill halfway through that game. So I was a little disappointed to see that there. The question mark for me is going to be, can Kyron Williams run all over them and be effective enough to create some balance? Again, was not impressed with him in the last game. So we will see what it looks like, but at less than 4, I'd be on the Bills side here, 3.5.
Yeah, I was asking why this line dropped from 4.5 to 3.5. I thought 4.5 was the right number. And so I would lean to Buffalo as well at 3.5. If, Rams have to lean on the run game, if Stafford's ankle injury gets worse in game, they might have to go to the run game. They might also have to go to the run game because Buffalo's strong against the pass. So the advantage that the Rams might have with their receivers just isn't going to be a factor as much against these Bills cornerbacks. The Bills are getting healthier. Everybody practiced in some fashion on Wednesday. So you can get the availability of guys like Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid coming back to juice their offense. And so then you're just leaning on the run game that hasn't been very good, as Mike said, with the Rams. But even if they do have success, Buffalo could just go out, score 30 plus for a 7th straight game and cover anyway. So I think Buffalo minus 3.5 is the play here.
Yep. Nothing quite like the two of the three sharp guys on the panel saying it's the Bills and me yelling Matthew Stafford and hoping that they figure out a way to backdoor the cover. Just like revenge game action. Huge NFC West matchup on CBS on Sunday. Seahawks at the Cardinals. Cardinals minus 2.5. Over under here of 44.5. This division is still wide open, RJ. And the Cardinals they're not frisky. They're just a good football team, but the Seahawks might be rounding into shape here, right?
Yeah, a lot of attention is being paid to how well the Cardinals have played, but not the Seahawks. And the Seahawks have won 3 straight with their defense allowing less than 300 yards in each game. Now the offense has been in that same bucket. So I think it's going to be a very low scoring game where points are at a premium. So love catching 2.5 here as a best bet. Even love the 3 better, and 3s have been available throughout the week. So try to get the 3. They shut down Arizona 2 weeks ago, including that Arizona run game. It's been really strong. Only gave up 49 rush yards in that game. So with the Arizona defense being solid as well, again, that was 16-6 that last game. We could see a similar type of game here. But I don't know that it's one Arizona wins by a field goal. So go get the +3 and also take it at +2.5. I wouldn't tease it because there's really nothing else on the board I'm looking to tease with. But Seattle, either way, I think this game should be closer to pick 'em.
I've got a slight lean to the Cardinals side here, but I'm really more interested in Trey McBride, the tight end that really is a wide receiver here. 27 targets in the last 2 weeks, 24 receptions in those games. And then even further back earlier in the season, many games of double-digit targets. This receiving line at 68.5, if we're getting anywhere close to 12 to 15 targets, should be 78.5. I like this particular spot for him. Like RJ, if you think this game's going to be really competitive and lower scoring, it means that he's probably going to be targeted a lot over the middle of the field because they're not going to have some of those bigger plays down the field available. So I like Trey McBride here in a number of ways. You can go over his receptions as well, but I found the yardage to be the most friendly here at 68.5.
I like that look because I think Arizona is going to struggle to run the ball yet again. This Seattle defense, Mike McDonald has turned it around. They're healthier now. Since the bye, they have just been shutting down opposing running games, and that's the key to Arizona, so they're going to be forced to throw a lot to Trey McBride. But I'm with you, RJ. I'm taking the points.
Yeah, I got nothing here for you. I'd probably lean towards Seattle as well. Bears at the Niners. This has got to be the disappointment bowl of the NFC. I mean, the Caleb Williams has flashed enough, but they fired their coach, they fired their OC. Bears fans were thinking Super Bowl in year 1, and I mean, come on, guys. The Niners definitely thinking Super Bowl, and they have just been brutalized by injuries. They are still, though, Larry, laying 4 here at home with a total of 44. And I mean, as bad as things have gotten, CMC on IR, now Jordan Mason on IR to add to the litany of injuries. Like, this is still a team that technically is alive for the playoffs.
Technically, but with Nick Bosa and Trent Williams, very iffy at best to come back this week. I think it's a great spot for the Bears, having fired Matt Eberflus, who they didn't like and didn't respect with his late game management, which is, unheard of to keep that timeout in your pocket for your career. I just love the way this new offensive coordinator has changed Caleb Williams. I mean, he has been a different quarterback the last 3 games. They've had very tight losses to 3 pretty good teams. And I think they can definitely do that here against a team that's probably not even on the level of the Lions or the Vikings that the Bears took to the limit on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's fair. And to be perfectly honest, I probably should have had the Bears as a best bet in here for a dead cat bounce game, just to remain completely on brand. I mean, that team was sniping at Matt Eberflus before and after, like leading up to that Thanksgiving loss, and then afterwards, Keenan Allen said the players did everything they could. You would expect that they sort of rally here, and Thomas Brown, they could just continue to play better in a post Matt Eberflus world. Chargers at Chiefs, big old spice on Sunday night. The Chiefs are laying 4 in this spot, Mike. Anything like the Chiefs. I saw somebody say the Chiefs should be like minus 500 to win and minus 3 in every game because they just find a way to pull it out. A total here of 43. You like the home team?
Yeah, I do like the home team, and you're right. If there was a team to break that mold and the correlation between a money line and a spread, it certainly would be this Chiefs team. But I had to look at this and make sure this wasn't some late season international series game, right? This is still a night game at Arrowhead, right? If it is, the line should be 6 in this game. Right. The line should be 6 in this game, right? When you look at these two teams, the way they're rated, it's one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. Just additional time here for Kansas City. I know that they lost that one game there in Buffalo. That gets actually good for them. They've got to keep the foot on the pedal to be able to still outpace Buffalo here. And I think they're going to be able to get it done. Losing J.K. Dobbins was a big deal on the side of the Chargers. And I just think that they're going to have enough. Look, will they cover the 4? Yeah, probably. They're going to win by 5 or 6 points. That's just simply what they do in these spots. So I would be on Kansas City here, minus 4.
Well, the reason the line is so low is because they haven't covered a game in 6 straight weeks. But I agree with you, Mike. This is the spot because they have extra rest. And the Chargers, remember that Monday night Harbaugh Bowl, and now you're on your 2nd straight road game. You don't have your number 1 running back. And will you have Ladd McConkey? And he means everything to that offense. We saw what happened when he went out against the Falcons. They couldn't get a first down. The other receivers on this team, they either A, do not separate, or B, they can't catch. So that leaves Ladd McConkey as Justin Herbert's most important weapon. So I think he did get some limited practice on Wednesday. We'll see what he does on Thursday. If he's not 100%, I really like the Chiefs in this spot to finally get a cover. I will mention one thing. They think they have a left tackle now in DJ Humphries. That's been a problem all season for the Chiefs. If he goes and he stabilizes that position, maybe we see that offense come to life.
And the Chargers defense has struggled recently against good offenses. We saw the Baltimore game, we saw the Cincinnati game, and they didn't last week because Cousins was horrible through those interceptions, but they really couldn't take advantage of it either, only winning that game by 4. It's a game, if you're a good team, you should be winning running away when the quarterback is that bad. Kansas City's cornerback issue might not be as exposed if McConkey can't play. They've really had an issue there with Najee Johnson getting targeted over and over and just not being able to do anything about it. But with McConkey being the whole offense now, that's less of a worry. Left tackle's less of a worry if Humphries is able to take over, and I expect he will. Kansas City hasn't covered in weeks, like you said. This is just a good matchup for them at what I think is a reduced number as well, because I have it at 6, just like Mike. So best bet for me is minus 4. Obviously, look for the 3.5 if you can still get it, but I'd play anything at 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards the Chiefs as well. When you start looking at just sort of the way that you want to buy low and you want to sell high, right? I mean, the Chiefs, you're buying low because the Chiefs haven't covered, and people think that the Chiefs, like I was joking about with the money line stuff, are just going to go out there and play with their food, find a way to win. The offense won't get going. We've seen Mahomes have some nice games in primetime, and it is sort of a, Jim Harbaugh likes to come into these divisions, and he's less feisty than he was with the 49ers, but he likes to come in and stir up rivalries. And I think, for lack of a better phrase, I think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid would sort of like to mark their territory here, right? Like, let Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert know you might be getting the press. We're the 2-time defending champions, and it is, Thanksgiving to Christmas and then on into the playoffs. If you're a team like the Chiefs, and we've seen the Patriots do it for years, you start to ramp up and get hot at the right time, you're going to be a big-time problem. Plus, keep pace ahead of the Bills so they can't get you with a tiebreaker. Does feel like a solid Chiefs spot. More disappointment on Monday. It's the nature of the beast. Not every team is going to be great. Joe Burrow is playing at like an MVP level. Jamar Chase might win every freaking award in the be the leader in every category for receivers. The Bengals have been great, but they somehow stink. And of course, the Cowboys. Oh boy, things are kind of turning around in Dallas. We'll tell you our best bets for Monday Night Football coming up next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 14 pick show. Best bets for every single game on the slate. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. Head down the home stretch here. Bengals at Cowboys, as Larry noted, the Mike Zimmer revenge game spot. I love it. I mean, I'm here for any and all revenge angles. Bengals are big favorites in this spot as 5.5-point favorites at the Cowboys in AT&T Stadium on Monday night with a robust total of 49.5. Mike, you actually like an anytime touchdown prop here that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm going to back Jamar Chase anytime touchdown. I haven't found it available yet in the market. Still waiting for this number to come out. But the guy's got 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's clearly a focal point. And this Bengals offense is going to continue to score points, in my opinion. They've been so good offensively, so bad defensively, that allows them to just continue to push. You do have to worry about Chase Brown a little bit in the red zone, but unfortunately, Burrow's not a mobile quarterback in the sense of looking to run. So I think it's Jamar Chase because of the ways they can use him. Let's go anytime touchdown here. Don't mind playing 2 touchdowns as well.
I'm going to lean Cowboys against that horrific Bengals defense that gave up 20-yard passes to 8 different Steelers last week. Jake Ferguson coming back, CD Lamb practicing. I'll take the Cowboys and the points.
Yeah, I'm on the Cowboys here as a best bet as well. I think it's more a byproduct, as Larry mentioned, the defense. Because, Joe Burrow, his numbers on the season, look, it's kind of a joke. He leads the NFL in passing yards. He leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. He has just 5 interceptions on the season. And his numbers, when you run them through historically, who has produced these numbers that Joe Burrow is putting up, there's 12 comparable seasons, and 10 of those seasons are MVP years. It's insane what Joe Burrow is doing, and the Bengals are freaking 4-8. So, I don't know if we see changes with Cincinnati or what happens here. I still think they keep gunning it, but I think the Cowboys have enough on offense to keep up. RJ, you have a look-ahead spot for Week 15.
Yeah, I like the Raiders plus 3.5 against Atlanta. I think Kirk Cousins struggles again against Minnesota, and no one should want to lay more than a field goal on the road with him if so. I don't see the Raiders hanging with Tampa Bay if Baker's okay. We know he's dealing with an injury, but O'Connell could have success in that game, and then he can come out in this game and have success if Atlanta's pass rush returns to mediocrity this week. So I do like the Raiders to make that a competitive game against Cousins. I think that line could reopen at 3 or lower. So take it right now, plus 3.5.
And who knows? It could be if Cousins plays really poorly against his old team, maybe it ends up being Michael Penix he's up against. But hey, anytime you can wager on Aiden O'Connell 2 weeks ahead of time, you have to take that advantage. You have to take that opportunity, RJ. All right. Excellent stuff, fellas. Great work, Mike. Great work, RJ. Great work, Larry. Mid work by me. You want tons of picks? You need to go to sportsline.com/join. Use promo code winners to get 60% off an annual plan and access to our SportsLine Discord. And while you're out there doing stuff to get winners, check out the Early Edge podcast, a daily SportsLine betting podcast. For RJ, for Larry, for Mike, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys later.